The sleek diplomatic vessel Defiance glided silently through space, approaching the massive orbital station where the Galactic Council conducted their affairs. Captain Jack Reynolds stood on the bridge, adjusting his formal uniform one last time. After decades of searching the stars, humanity had finally made contact with an advanced interstellar civilization, or rather, 12 of them. "Are you nervous, sir?" Lieutenant Olivia Dawson asked, standing at attention beside him. "Only a fool wouldn't be," Reynolds replied with a slight smile. "We're about to meet beings who've been traveling between stars while our ancestors were still figuring out how to make fire." The Defiance docked with practiced precision. Reynolds led his diplomatic team through the airlock and into the alien station. The architecture was both beautiful and impossible, curved structures that seemed to defy gravity, materials that shifted colors as they walked past. A tall, slender being with iridescent blue skin approached. "I am Exarvoth of the Nilari, first speaker of the Council. Welcome to Harmony Station, humans of Earth." Reynolds bowed slightly. "Captain Jack Reynolds of the Earth Alliance. We're honored to be received by the Council." The alien's 4 eyes blinked in sequence. "Indeed. Your species has achieved faster-than-light travel remarkably quickly after discovering electromagnetic communications. The Council finds this concerning." Reynolds maintained his diplomatic smile despite the implied criticism. "We're eager learners." The delegation was led to a vast chamber where representatives of all 12 Council species waited. Some floated in anti-gravity fields, others stood on platforms, and 2 remained submerged in bubbling tanks. Reynolds felt the weight of non-human eyes judging them. "The humans request membership in our council," Taharvov announced. "They have achieved the technological minimum requirements, though barely." A being composed of what looked like crystalline structures chimed in, its voice translated through their earpieces. "Their ships still use reaction thrusters. Primitive. And their medical technology is barely beyond cellular manipulation," added a creature with tentacles wrapped in elaborate metals. Reynolds stepped forward. "With respect, we come to learn as much as to share. Earth has much to offer the galactic community." "Does it?" Exarvoth asked. "Please, elaborate on these offerings." Lieutenant Dawson stiffened beside Reynolds as he began listing Earth's achievements. She knew what was coming. Later, during the formal dining ceremony, the council members examined the equipment the humans had brought as diplomatic gifts and technology samples. Arvoth lifted one of the standard-issue sidearms the security team carried. "You still use projectile weapons." The alien's translator couldn't fully convey the contempt in his voice. "Solid bullets propelled by chemical explosions." Dawson stepped forward. "Our firearms are highly effective and reliable in various environments." Zarvoth passed the weapon to another council member, who examined it with 4 tentacles. "Energy weapons have been standard for council species for millennia. These are toys." Laughter rippled through the chamber, a different sound from each species, but unmistakably mockery. "Even the Jurka abandoned such weapons during their Stone Age," Exarvoth said. "Do your projectiles penetrate energy shields? Can they function in vacuum? Can they distinguish between friend and foe?" Dawson opened her mouth to respond, but Reynolds placed a hand on her arm. "We're still developing our technology," he said diplomatically. The council voted to grant humans provisional membership, the lowest possible status. As they returned to the Defiance, Dawson couldn't contain herself any longer. "They treated us like children, sir. They laughed at our weapons without understanding them." Reynolds looked out at the swirling stars. "Let them laugh, Lieutenant. There's an old Earth saying, 'He who laughs last, laughs best.'" He turned to her with determination in his eyes. "And mark my words, when the time comes, we'll be the ones laughing." Admiral Samuel Hayes paced the length of the observation deck, hands clasped behind his back. Through the massive windows, he watched as the alien delegation's ship descended toward Earth's primary military space station. The Council had sent their technology assessment team much sooner than expected. "They're eager to catalog our inferiority," Hayes muttered to Chief Engineer Laura Bennett, who stood nearby reviewing data on her tablet. "Let them try," Bennett replied with a small smile. "They've already made up their minds about us." The council representatives emerged from their vessel with an air of superiority that was palpable even across species. Ambassador Skatal of the Vraxian Collective led the group, his four arms moving in complex patterns that his species used to denote authority. Behind him followed experts from 6 other council races. "Welcome to Earth Defense Station Alpha," Hayes said, offering the formal greeting gesture they had been taught. "We're prepared to show you our capabilities as requested." Skatal's translator device hummed. "We appreciate your cooperation. The Council must properly categorize human defense technology for the Galactic Registry." The delegation was first shown the station's command center, where they expressed mild interest in Earth's tracking systems. When presented with schematics for Earth's orbital defense grid, however, their attention waned visibly. "These are kinetic weapons platforms," Bennett explained, highlighting the railgun systems. "They can accelerate projectiles too." Yes, interrupted Skatal, upper arms waving dismissively. "Projectile technology. We have observed this already. Perhaps you could show us your energy-based systems." Bennett exchanged a glance with Hayes. "We use targeted energy weapons for point defense, but our primary armaments are advanced railguns and missile systems." A tall, spindly alien with reflective skin made a sound that the translators rendered as laughter. "Fascinating. You expend physical materials with each attack. How? Economical." The tour continued through weapons testing facilities, armories, and finally to a demonstration range. Hayes had arranged for precision shooting demonstrations by Earth's best marksmen, but the alien showed little enthusiasm. "Ambassador," Hayes said carefully, "I notice your delegation seems unimpressed by our ballistic weapons. May I ask what Council species use for combat?" Skatal extended his lower arms in what might have been a shrug. "Most civilized species abandoned physical projectiles millennia ago. Our vessels use graviton beams, plasma lances, or quantum disruptors. No recoil, no ammunition concerns, and they function identically in any environment." Intelligence Officer Daniel Mitchell, who had remained silent throughout the tour, finally spoke up. "And how do these weapons perform against various shield types?" "They adapt," Skatal replied simply. "That is the advantage of energy-based systems." Later, as the delegation returned to their quarters to prepare reports, Mitchell pulled Hayes and Bennett into a secure room. "I've accessed their preliminary assessment," Mitchell said, voice low despite the room's security. "They classified us as minimal threat and technologically stagnant. They're recommending we be restricted from certain sectors due to our underdeveloped defensive capabilities." Hayes frowned. "They've completely misunderstood our weapons philosophy." Bennett tapped her tablet, bringing up designs for Earth's newest railgun system. "They don't realize that sometimes the simplest approach is the most effective. Their shields are designed to disperse energy, not stop a tungsten rod moving at relativistic speeds." "Should we correct their misconception?" Mitchell asked. Hayes considered this for a long moment. "No, let them underestimate us. There's an advantage in being underestimated." He looked out toward the stars. "But make sure our border patrols are doubled. If the Council thinks we're defenseless, others might get the same idea." "And if we're challenged?" Bennett asked. Hayes' expression hardened. "Then they'll learn about human guns the hard way." Captain Jack Reynolds stood at the viewport of the Defiance, watching the stars blur as they traveled at full speed toward Proxima, humanity's first colony beyond the solar system. His face reflected deep concern in the glass. "Status report," he said, turning to his bridge crew. Lieutenant Olivia Dawson looked up from her weapons console. "All systems ready, Captain. Railguns charged and missile bays prepped." "How bad is it?" Reynolds asked his communications officer. 3 Krell battleships have surrounded the colony," replied the young officer. "They're demanding immediate surrender. They've given our colonists 48 hours before they begin orbital bombardment." Reynolds clenched his jaw. The Krell Empire, a species not part of the Galactic Council, had been eyeing the resource-rich Proxima system for years. Now they were making their move, perhaps believing that humans lacked the military strength to defend their claim. "Any word from the Council?" Reynolds asked. His first officer shook his head. "They've sent an observation vessel, but no military support. Their official response was that this is a minor border dispute that humans should handle independently." "Of course," Reynolds muttered. "They think we'll lose." The bridge fell silent. Everyone knew what had happened during the Council's assessment of Earth. The aliens' dismissal of human weapons technology had spread throughout the fleet, becoming a source of bitter jokes among the crew. The Defiance dropped out of FTL near Proxima, immediately detecting the massive Krell vessels in orbit around the colony. The alien ships were imposing, covered in glowing energy weapons and shimming defense shields. "They've spotted us," Dawson reported. "They're hailing." The main screen activated, showing a Krell commander. The reptilian alien had scales that shifted from green to red as it spoke. "Human vessel, this territory now belongs to the Krell Empire. Your colonists will be permitted to leave with personal belongings only. All infrastructure and resources are now property of the Empire." Reynolds stood tall. "This colony is recognized by the Galactic Council as sovereign human territory. Your ships are trespassing in Earth Alliance space." The Krell commander's scales flashed bright red. "The Council recognizes many things, human, but they will not fight for you, and you cannot fight for yourselves. You have primitive weapons and a single vessel. I have 3 battleships." Just then, sensors detected a new arrival, a sleek, crystalline ship that took position at a safe distance. "Council observers," the first officer noted. "Right on time to watch our defeat." Reynolds narrowed his eyes. "Open a channel to the colony." The screen split to show the colony leader, a woman with determination etched on her face despite her fear. "We have 3,000 colonists here, Captain," she said, "including 400 children." Reynolds nodded. "Begin emergency evacuation procedures. Move everyone to the central shelters." The Krell commander laughed, a harsh sound. "Running will not save them. Your surrender is." Reynolds cut the transmission. "Lieutenant Dawson, what's the status of the colony's defense grid?" Dawson's fingers danced across her console. "Online but untested. 6 orbital platforms, each with twin railguns and point defense systems. Activate them. Target Krell engines and weapons systems only." "Sir," the first officer said quietly, "if we engage, this becomes war." Reynolds looked at the massive enemy ships, then at the small colony they threatened. "They made it war when they threatened our people." He straightened his uniform. "Lieutenant Dawson, prepare our main batteries. Target the lead vessel's propulsion system." The Council observation ship adjusted position for a better view, its sensors no doubt recording everything for the amusement of the Galactic Council. "Let's show them what human guns can do," Reynolds said, his voice steady. "Fire when ready." Lieutenant Olivia Dawson's fingers moved with practiced precision over her weapons console. Targeting systems locked on Krell lead vessel. Colony defense grid standing by. "Fire," Reynolds ordered calmly. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then streaks of light erupted from the Defiance and the orbital platforms surrounding Proxima. To anyone watching, they might have appeared insignificant against the massive Krell warships. The Krell commander's face reappeared on screen, scales rippling with amusement. "Is that your best effort? Primitive projectiles against our—" His words cut off as the first railgun round struck his vessel. The tungsten rods, accelerated to a fraction of light speed, tore through the Krell's energy shields as if they weren't there. The impact sent shockwaves across the massive ship's hull. "Direct hit on propulsion systems," Dawson reported, a hint of satisfaction in her voice. "Their shields are designed to disperse energy weapons, not stop solid objects moving at relativistic speeds." The Krell vessel listed to one side, emergency lights flashing across its surface. On the colony below, The defense platforms continued their precision barrage, targeting the weapon emplacements on the second Krell ship. The Council vessel is adjusting position, the sensor officer reported. They're moving closer to observe. Reynolds nodded. Let them watch. Lieutenant Dawson, target the weapons array on the third Krell ship. The Defiance's main railgun rotated and fired again. The projectile crossed the void in seconds, punching through the alien vessel's outer hull with devastating force. Secondary explosions bloomed along the ship's flank as power systems overloaded. On screen, the Krell commander's scales had shifted to a pale yellow, a sign of shock, according to their briefings. Impossible. Your weapons, they shouldn't penetrate our defenses. Your shields are designed to stop energy, Reynolds said. We don't use energy weapons. The second Krell vessel attempted to return fire, energy beams, lancing out toward the Defiance. The human ship's point defense system activated instantly, smaller railguns firing clouds of metallic fragments that dispersed the energy beams. Their weapons are ineffective against our defenses too, Dawson said, unable to hide or smile. Our armor is designed to refract and absorb energy attacks. The third Krell ship began to retreat, its captain clearly reassessing the situation. Reynolds ordered the colony defense grid to fire warning shots across its path, demonstrating their range. All Krell vessels, this is Captain Reynolds of the Earth Alliance. Your ships are damaged, but your crews can survive. Withdraw from this system immediately. The bridge fell silent as they waited for a response. The lead Krell vessel, now venting atmosphere from multiple hull breaches, slowly turned away from the colony. The others followed. They're retreating, the first officer said, sounding almost surprised. Reynolds turned toward the view screen showing the Council observation vessel. Open a channel to our Council observers. The screen flickered, revealing the startled-looking Exarvov. The Nilari representative's 4 eyes were wide with what appeared to be shock. First speaker, Reynolds said formally. I trust your vessel recorded that exchange for the Council's records. Yes, Exarvov replied. Our instruments must be malfunctioning. Your weapons penetrated Krell shields rated to withstand much more advanced systems. Dawson stepped forward. Not malfunctioning. First speaker, your energy shields are excellent against energy weapons, but kinetic projectiles, what you dismissed as primitive, follow different rules of physics. Zervoth's skin shifted from blue to a pale lavender. The Council will need to reassess many things. Reynolds nodded. We look forward to that reassessment. Defiance out. As the screen went dark, Reynolds turned to his crew. Begin damage assessment of the colony and prepare medical teams. He paused, looking at the retreating Krell ships. And Lieutenant Dawson. Yes, Captain. Excellent shooting. The Grand Chamber of the Galactic Council erupted in chaos. Representatives from all 12 species spoke over one another, some hovering from their gravity platforms in agitation, others pulsing with bioluminescent displays of alarm. First speaker Exarvov struggled to maintain order, his blue skin now a troubled shade of violet. Silence, he finally commanded, his amplified voice echoing through the chamber. We will address this situation with the dignity befitting the Council. The room gradually quieted. At the center of the chamber stood the human delegation. Admiral Samuel Hayes, Chief Engineer Laura Bennett, and Intelligence Officer Daniel Mitchell. Their faces remained carefully neutral despite the hostility directed toward them. Ambassador Skatal of the Vraxian Collective pointed all 4 of his arms accusingly at the humans. You deliberately concealed your true military capabilities. The humans allowed us to believe their weapons were ineffective, while secretly developing systems that could threaten any Council member. Admiral Hayes stepped forward. With respect, Ambassador, we concealed nothing. We presented our weapons systems exactly as they are. The Council chose not to take them seriously. Preposterous, bellowed a massive, gelatinous Council member. Our assessment team examined your technology thoroughly. Engineer Bennett activated a holographic display, showing the schematics they had previously presented to the Council's assessment team. "These are the exact same designs we showed your representatives. You dismissed them because they used physical projectiles rather than energy beams. You never ask about their velocity or impact force." The Council chamber fell uncomfortably quiet. "The Krell ships were equipped with our finest shield technology," said a crystalline being from the far side of the chamber. "Technology we assured them would protect against any likely threat." Hayes nodded. "Energy shields are effective against energy weapons, but a solid object moving at relativistic speeds follows different physical laws. Your shields are designed to disperse energy, not stop mass." Intelligence Officer Mitchell stepped forward, adding, "We noticed during our initial meeting that Council species have universally adopted energy-based weapons. It appears to be a technological bias that left a significant tactical blind spot." Kazarvoth's 4 eyes blinked rapidly. "Are you suggesting that the combined scientific knowledge of 12 advanced species missed something that humans discovered?" "Not at all," Hayes replied diplomatically. "You simply evolved in a different direction. Council species developed increasingly sophisticated energy weapons and corresponding defenses. Humans focused on perfecting kinetic weapons instead." Ambassador Skatal was not appeased. "The fact remains that humans possess military technology capable of defeating our defensive systems. This changes the balance of power significantly. I propose immediate sanctions against Earth until we can properly assess this threat." Several Council members vocalized agreement, creating another wave of noise throughout the chamber. Admiral Hayes raised his hand. "Before you vote on sanctions, consider this. The Krell attacked a peaceful human colony. We defended ourselves with precision, causing minimal casualties. We didn't destroy their ships when we could have. Is this the behavior of a species you should fear?" Engineer Bennett activated another display showing the battle footage. "Our weapons targeted propulsion and weapon systems only. We specifically avoided power cores and life support." Zarvoth studied the footage carefully. "The restraint is noteworthy." A new voice spoke from the back of the chamber, a representative of the Orvani, one of the oldest Council species. "Perhaps we have been hasty in our judgment of humans. Any species could have exploited such a tactical advantage for conquest. Instead, they used it only for defense." The chamber grew quiet again as Council members considered this perspective. "I propose," the Orvani continued, "that instead of sanctions, we invite the humans to demonstrate their weapons technology properly. Under controlled conditions, of course." Zarvoth looked around the chamber, sensing the shifting mood. "An excellent suggestion. Admiral Hayes, would Earth be willing to provide such a demonstration?" Hayes exchanged glances with his colleagues before answering. "We would be honored." Major Grace Wilson stood perfectly still as the transport touched down on Lumeria, the Galactic Council's ceremonial homeworld. Behind her, a squad of Earth's finest soldiers waited in formation, each carrying standard-issue firearms that had been carefully inspected and approved for this demonstration. "Remember," Wilson told her team, "we're not here to intimidate. We're here to educate." The landing ramp descended, revealing a stunning landscape of crystal spires and floating platforms. A delegation of Council representatives waited, their diverse anatomies representing the 12 species that controlled most of the known galaxy. Behind them stood a crowd of military officials, scientists, and dignitaries, all gathered to witness the human demonstration. Major Wilson, Zarvoth greeted her, his blue skin now a more respectful shade. "We have prepared the testing grounds according to your specifications." Wilson nodded. "Thank you, First Speaker. My team is ready when you are." They proceeded to an enormous enclosed facility where various materials had been arranged, identical to the shields and armor used on Council vessels. Observation platforms floated above the testing area, each filled with curious onlookers. "The Council has a few questions before we begin," Ambassador Skatal said, approaching with a data tablet. "Specifically about the ammunition your weapons use." Wilson took a standard bullet from her pocket. "This is a basic round. a metal projectile with a casing containing propellant. When fired, the propellant creates pressure that forces the projectile through the barrel at high velocity. Skal examined it with all four hands. So simple, yet our preliminary analysis suggests these should not penetrate our defensive technology. That's what we're here to demonstrate, Wilson replied with a slight smile. At the firing range, Wilson's team set up their equipment methodically. Engineer Laura Bennett had joined them, and now she activated a series of sensors around the testing area. "We'll begin with standard firearms," Wilson announced to the observers. "Then progress to our more advanced systems." The first demonstration involved basic rifles firing at Council shield generators. The aliens watched with increasing concern as bullet after bullet penetrated the energy fields that had protected their ships for centuries. "The shields are trying to disperse energy," Bennett explained to the stunned audience. "But these projectiles don't deliver their force as energy. They deliver it as mass times acceleration. The shields have nothing to disperse." Next came demonstrations of specialized ammunition, rounds that could change trajectory mid-flight, fragmenting bullets that split after penetrating shields, and armor-piercing rounds that went through multiple layers of alien hull material. A hushed conversation spread through the watching crowd. Wilson could see the military officials from various species taking furious notes. "For our final demonstration," Wilson announced, "we'll show you a scaled-down version of our railgun technology." Her team unveiled a man-portable railgun prototype. Bennett stepped forward to explain. "Unlike traditional firearms that use chemical propellants, this weapon uses electromagnetic force to accelerate a projectile to vastly higher velocities. The kinetic energy delivered is exponentially greater. When fired, the railgun sent its projectile through every layer of defense the Council had provided, embedding deep in the reinforced wall behind." The sound of the impact echoed through the facility, followed by complete silence from the observers. Zarvoth approached slowly, his four eyes blinking in sequence. "I believe I understand now. We became so focused on energy manipulation that we neglected the simplest laws of physics." "Sometimes the old ways remain effective," Wilson replied. "Kinetic energy never goes out of style." An Orvani military official floated forward. "Could such weapons be adapted for our use? Many Council species lack the physical strength to manage recoil from such devices." Wilson glanced at Bennett, who nodded. "That's already been considered. We've designed recoil compensation systems that would work with various physiologies." As the demonstration concluded, Wilson noticed a fundamental change in how the Council representatives regarded her team. The dismissive condescension had vanished, replaced by thoughtful respect. "I believe," Zarvoth announced to the assembly, "that the Council has much to learn from our human friends." The Grand Ceremony Hall of Harmony Station gleamed with the combined ceremonial colors of all Council species. Banners representing Earth hung prominently beside those of the 12 founding members, no longer segregated to the section reserved for provisional associates. Captain Jack Reynolds stood at attention as first speaker. Zarvoth approached the central platform. Behind Reynolds, a delegation of humans waited, including Lieutenant Olivia Dawson, Admiral Samuel Hayes, and several other key figures who had helped reshape humanity's standing in galactic politics over the past 3 months. "Today marks a historic occasion," Zarvoth announced, his voice carrying through the vast chamber. "For the first time in 8 centuries, the Galactic Council welcomes a new full member." The assembled representatives of dozens of species watched as Zarvoth presented Reynolds with the ceremonial orb that symbolized Council membership. Unlike the provisional membership ceremony, there were no whispers of doubt, no condescending glances. Earth has proven itself not merely capable of defending its territory, Zarvoth continued, but of bringing new perspectives to our ancient institution. Reynolds accepted the orb with a formal bow. "On behalf of Earth and all humans, we are honored to join the Council as equals. We look forward to contributing to galactic peace and prosperity." The formalities concluded, Reynolds found himself surrounded by representatives eager to speak with him. Most surprising was Ambassador Skal, who approached with all four arms extended in the Vraxian gesture of respect. "Captain Reynolds," the ambassador said, "I must acknowledge my error in judgment regarding your species. Your restraint and victory impressed many of us." Reynolds nodded. "We came to the stars seeking friends, not conquests." Across the reception hall, Lieutenant Dawson was deep in conversation with military officials from 3 different species. Since the demonstration on Lumeria, she had become the unofficial ambassador for human weapons technology. Already, 4 Council species had requested training programs. "The adaptations for Nilari physiology are complete," she explained, showing diagrams on her tablet. "The recoil compensation system accounts for your different center of gravity." The Nilari general's skin shifted to a pleased lavender. "Excellent. Our security forces are eager to begin training." Admiral Hayes, meanwhile, was engaged in serious discussion with the Council's Strategic Committee. The recent Krell encounter had exposed vulnerabilities in Council defense doctrine that extended far beyond a single battle. "We propose a joint security initiative," Hayes explained. "Combining human kinetic weapons technology with Council energy systems could create defensive capabilities superior to either approach alone." The Orvani representative, whose species had initially been most skeptical of humans, now nodded enthusiastically. "Such innovation is precisely why bringing new species into the Council remains vital, despite the risks." As the reception continued, Engineer Bennett approached Reynolds with exciting news. "Sir, the Council has approved our proposal for a joint research facility on Mars. They're particularly interested in our miniaturized railgun technology." Reynolds smiled. "From laughingstock to research partners in 3 months. Not bad." "It seems we've earned their respect," Bennett replied. "Respect is good," Reynolds said, watching the mingling of humans and aliens throughout the hall. "But understanding is better. They finally understand that different doesn't mean inferior." As the celebration wound down, Tharvoth took Reynolds aside for a private word. "There is something the Council has not yet shared with the General Assembly," the first speaker said, his voice low. "Our long-range sensors have detected unusual activity beyond the outer rim. Something approaching." Reynolds frowned. "Hostile. Unknown. But if conflict comes, the Council will need both our traditional technologies and your innovative approaches." Edzarvoth's 4 eyes blinked in sequence. "Perhaps the universe sent humans to us precisely when we needed new perspectives." Reynolds looked out the viewport at the stars beyond. "If that threat comes, first speaker, you'll find Earth standing with you." As the human delegation prepared to return to their ship, Lieutenant Dawson couldn't resist a small smile. "Remember when they laughed at our guns? They're not laughing anymore," Reynolds replied. "Now they're learning to use them."